Assalamualaikum everyone. Welcome to Sada Education. Today our objective is to explain the nature of the conventional or mainstream banking business that is operated based on riba. Because it is very important to have this subject matter well understood by the listeners before we can get into the product offering of the Islamic Bank in more detail. As we know that this is a forum where we will be looking into issues related to the integrity of running the Islamic banking business, and the integrity will be involving people in regulation. It will be involving people that is running the bank itself, and people who are investing in the bank. These are basically the shareholders, and of course the people who are using the product offering, the deposit product, the financing product, and so on. And before we can appreciate how the Quran is able to contribute to the more equitable running of the banking business based on albay against the prevailing system that is using riba, it is very, very critical to understand the basic nature of the banking business, because this is where it started from. Islamic banking is based on conventional banking. So when we look at the nature of the commercial banking system, because it is the commercial banking model that was adopted to run the Islamic banking business rather than the investment banking modality. And that is why it is very important for us to understand the nature of the deposit used by the bank to make loan, and also the nature of capital that the bank is required to hold against the loans. So it is very, very important to see that the listeners have a fair understanding of the basic banking business before we can come in to see how albay can be applied to replace riba in the banking business, which is a commercial banking entity. So we can see that when the Quran has prescribed albay over riba, which is in Surah Al-Baqarah 275, the obvious place to apply albay against riba is the commercial bank. It is not the investment bank, it is not the unit trust company or the asset management firm or the venture capital company. It has to be a place where riba predominates, and that would be the commercial bank, right? So the nature of the commercial bank is to take in interest-bearing deposits and using this interest-bearing deposit to make interest-bearing loan. Right, so the nature of the riba banking company must be clearly understood before albay, can be successfully applied there to replace riba. Because I presume that when we listen to the claim about Sharia compliant product as the basis of Islamic banking, and that will assure that the bank is operating 100% based on the Quran and Sunnah. But yet, yes, we will accept that, but the place where the Sharia compliant product is applied must be first understood, because the ecosystem of the bank is very, very ripe to accept or to nourish the riba-based transaction rather than the transaction based on buy and sell, or based on leasing, or based on partnership, right? So by simply transplanting albay contract into the commercial banking modality is a myth, because without understanding what is the basic nature of the commercial banking business, then the design of Sharia compliant product may have problem, because we are dealing with buy and sell rather than with lending and borrowing with interest. So it is very important for us to understand the basic nature of the commercial banking system that is operating on riba. So the banking company is the center of the riba business, where bank take interest-bearing deposit. So bank will now become the borrowing party. Bank will borrow money from the public, from the household, from businesses, from government agencies, and pays interest on the deposits, and the depositors is now the lending party to the bank. And the bank will use this deposit fund, or this interest-bearing deposit fund, to make interest-bearing loans and charges interest on this interest-bearing loan. So the banking company is the entity where riba is to be replaced by albay. So this is a very so-called serious agenda to put albay into the banking infrastructure, into the conventional banking ecosystem, and without understanding how the bank operated, then it will be very difficult for us to understand to what extent the Sharia compliant product is able to impact society or able to impact the economy. Okay, if you look at a simple balance sheet of a banking, of a commercial banking business, we can see that the banking business is operated based on the taking of interest-bearing deposit and using the interest-bearing deposit to make interest-bearing loans. So we can see from the funding side, we got the deposit of 100 million, for example, at 3% per annum. So the bank would pay a deposit rate of 3% to the depositor, and this by issuing current account products, saving account, and fixed account product. So in general, the total deposit acquired from the depositors is 100 million at 3% interest per annum, and this deposit fund is now used by the bank to make interest-bearing loan, and the loan rate is at 7%. And so the bank make loans to the customer. The bank will make housing loan, vehicle loan, personal loan, business loans, and that would be the general amount of 100 million at 7% per annum. And this is how the banking system operates, by taking interest-bearing deposits and using interest-bearing deposit to make interest-bearing loans. So when we look at the simple income statement, that the making of loans of 100 million at 7% loan rate will generate an interest revenue of 7 million. And the cost of deposit, 100 million that the bank acquire from the depositor at 3%, that will cost the bank 3 million of interest expense. And when we look at the interest earning, would be the difference between interest revenues and interest expense, and that would be 7 million minus 3 million, and that is 4 million of interest earning acquired by the bank. Thus, the bank earns $4 million by making 100 million loan at 7% per annum, funded by 100 million of deposit at 3% deposit rate. So that's a very simple illustration of the profit and loss statement of any interest-bearing commercial bank. Of course, when we look at a more enhanced income statement, where we will be adding up more expenses, like overhead expenses and loan loss provision expenses. So we can see that the net earning will be 2 million. So we got the interest revenue of 7 million, interest expense of 3 million. So the gross interest earning or the interest margin will be 4 million. And we got 1 million to run the bank. So we have to pay salaries and payrolls and all that. So that will be 1 million. And then the bank will have to forecast, how much loss that can occur in the loan. So that will be in the form of the loan loss provision. And we say that is 1 million. And so the net earning to the bank is 2 million. Right? So this is the net interest earning that is coming from the making of interest-bearing loan and funded by the interest-bearing deposits. So net earning of 2 million. So this is a very important beginning or introduction to appreciate the nature of the banking business that the Islamic bank will use as a model to transplant albay into the conventional framework where the basis of deposit is coming from a debt system and the basis of loan is coming from a debt system, interest-bearing debts, and how the albay system is able to mobilize deposit, or how the albay system is able to extend financing, to be able to generate revenues, and how much cost that will be carried by the Islamic deposit, and how much earning that the Islamic bank will be making. This is a question that we must be able to examine in the coming session, and how much provision that the Islamic bank need to make, from the murabaha or tawarruk exposure given away, and the net earning that will be enjoyed by the bank will be defined by the various items that we see in the income statement. So the Islamic banking business is not simply a matter of Sharia compliant product or patuh Sharia product. It is the amalgamation of the complexity in the generation of revenues and the cost incurred in acquiring the fund, and the efficiency in running the bank, which is defined by the overhead, and to what extent the financing or loan were given out have good quality, and that all will define the net earning the bank will be getting at the end of the day. Okay guys, I think we will end up here at the moment, and we'll continue later on with more discussion on the nature of the conventional banking system. Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullah.